Welcome, GM. Hello. This is episode 2 of our founder sessions. Very excited about this one. I'll say just a minute, talk a minute about this format. It's a very fast-paced, down-to-earth conversation with people that have been there and done that. Today, 2 great guests talking about marketing, one of the most confounding topics, I think, in the Web3 space, because the space moves at such high speeds. Today, bringing on 2 people who know quite a bit about it, though, and hopefully have some illuminating insights to help us all, find a good path forward. And very excited to bring on stage with me here Val from TRBE, the CMO, and Maurice, co-founder of Sumo, formerly of Use Lulo and many other exploits in the Web3 space, a real veteran. Hey guys, hey Val, how are you?
I am good. Thank you. How about you?
I'm great. Maurice, how about you?
Good. Excited to be here. Always happy to spread some knowledge and help other people grow.
Amazing. Where are you guys joining us from, actually? Maurice, you're in Baltimore?
Yeah, I'm outside DC in Baltimore.
Val, where are you
Australia,
at?
Melbourne.
Australia. All right. It's late for you.
Yep. But it's never too late for gaining some knowledge, so I am always prepared for that.
Appreciate that. So just for the audience, also to clarify the format, we're going to have 2 presentations, rapid fire knowledge sharing of our 2 guests, and then we'll hop into a conversation, go a little bit deeper on the topics mentioned. You in the chat can interact anytime you want, ask questions, make a comment, tell us to talk more shit or less. And yeah, we're open to all of these comments. So just to prove that we can see them, I'll bring up some of them on stage here right now. But yeah, so feel free to interact, and we'll keep this interactive, short, rapid fire. And that's why there is no further ado here. I'm just gonna give the mic to Maurice, have him introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he learned. Maurice, feel free to share your screen. I'm gonna say bye for now, and bye to Val for now as well. And then we'll meet again in about 10 minutes with Val. All right, Maurice, take it away. Oh,
Lucas, not me. Okay, there we go. GM. My name is Maurice. I am an artist and builder in the crypto space. I have been working in the Solana ecosystem since Q1 of 2021. I am a growth professional, and that can mean many things. But to start, I've thought, I always am curious about people's backgrounds in crypto, what gives them the credentials to talk about the topics they talk about. So I figured I'd give you a little background on myself. So since joining Solana in the beginning of 2021, I've worked on a variety of projects. I was marketing lead and ran community and communications at MonkeyDAO during the IP buyout and the Gen 3 mint, if anyone's familiar. I've worked with Super Team Germany, where Lucas is a member. I'm co-founder at Mustache DAO, which is a men's health support group, but we do a lot of shit posting, I must admit. And most recently, I was head of growth for Lulo, where I helped grow the company, where I helped grow the Twitter account from 0 to, I think, about 18K today, organically, no point systems, no referrals, no broken incentive mechanisms. At the peak, we were at 135 million in deposits. I recently stepped down from that position to take care of some personal stuff and explore some new things. But I've been in crypto since 2011. My neighbors were mining Bitcoin on home computers, and I've been consulting as well since joining, going full-time crypto. You can see some of the little logos up there for companies I've worked with. Yeah, I'll just keep it moving. So what is growth in Web3? It's not so obvious, right? Outside of crypto and Web2, roles can be much more defined, much more broken down. In crypto, they tend to be broader. So what I was doing for Lulo, for instance, was marketing, go-to-market strategies, just general strategic marketing, branding, brand building, content creation, written and visual, social media management, business development, communications, community building, and so much more. But today we're here to talk about marketing. So I want to just kind of touch on that specifically. I like pixel art. We're in crypto. Marketing has a lot of facets between, promoting a product that you're building, leveraging technology that you're using, who are your targets, what kind of formats and content types are you using, are you leveraging your network, these kinds of things. But, marketing is about creating and delivering value to satisfy customer needs. You need to understand their desires. You need to craft suitable products and services to effectively promote what you're doing. And I really want to highlight building relationships and highlighting why your company or why your account adds value, right? In crypto, there's one distribution channel that reigns supreme, and you could kind of imagine what that is. And it starts and begins with X. It used to be called Twitter. I personally prefer crypto Twitter, but we'll keep it moving there. So today I'm going to share 4 crypto Twitter tips. These tips definitely go beyond Twitter, but because X is that main platform, I thought it made the most sense to focus here. And the number one thing I would say, above all else, more important than how often you post, more important than what you post, is being human and building brand and getting into the community. What I mean by human-powered brand building is people in general connect more with other people, right? People will listen to me more than they would listen to just some logo talking about some product. So when I say humanize your brand and humanize your branding and humanize your marketing, I mean, get out there, understand what the people want, build off user feedback. That goes for your product and your marketing itself. And leverage your network, leverage your people. I do think founder-led marketing in crypto is really important. It's not always possible, right? Sometimes you have representatives in companies that take on that outward-facing position. But in crypto, it is especially important to build trust. And building trust often has to do with that humanization factor. I know for me, building my career in crypto, IRL events, networking, getting on video calls, being docs, actually like being public and not being an anonymous person, made massive differences in my consulting opportunities, when I was working full-time for Lulo, when I was with Monkey DAO, etc. I really can't stress that enough. The last note I would make here on human-powered marketing and humanizing your marketing is reducing the jargon that you use as much as possible. In crypto, there's a ton of jargon. There's a ton of terms, YOLO, FOMO, MCAP. We could degen, Chad. I could keep going, but at the end of the day, not everybody understands those terms. And it's really important for you to understand your user base and speak to them in a language that they understand. We'll leave it at that for now. Next, number 2 rule that I would share is microwave your meals, right? People often don't have the time, the patience, the bandwidth to read super long threads, super long posts. And unfortunately, and it might not sound so nice, but most people are lazy, right? They don't want to read a huge post. So it becomes really important that you do smaller posts. Did we lose the presentation? There we go. We're back. All right. So microwave meals, shorter, succinct, getting to the point of the message that you're trying to send. I often say saying less is saying more. For anyone that's not familiar, this is my remake of a little meme. I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you though, or sorry that happened. I would emphasize this further in when you're doing business development in crypto as well. Be really, really direct with your messaging when you're sending cold DMs or when you're making introductions. I think this kind of extends there as well. Next thing I would love to stress is experiment. Throw spaghetti on the wall. Even this presentation is an experiment to see how we get reactions and input from people, right? In crypto specifically, because the space moves so fast, metas change all the time. If you were here in 2021, the biggest things were the metaverse and gaming, right? And we could see how that played out. And then NFTs became the hottest craze. And through that time, companies shifted and changed gears, and so did the marketing, and so did the way that people engaged on crypto Twitter. So I would highly recommend throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? Take some shots. You can only make the shots you take, right? So I often encourage clients and projects that I work with, experiment. The worst thing that could happen is it doesn't do numbers. You don't get a lot of engagement. It doesn't produce results. And then that leads me to actionable metrics are more important than vanity metrics. And this plays into what we were just saying. When you throw spaghetti on the wall, you should be throwing spaghetti on the wall with purpose, right? What's the point? What's the end goal? So oftentimes on crypto Twitter specifically, people want to have a lot of followers, high engagement rates, and lots of impressions and likes and retweets. Well, I would challenge that and say, focus on actionable metrics. What are those actionable metrics? What metrics will drive results for your company? What are you trying to do? So for me, one of the biggest actionable metrics that is more important than the vanity metrics are verified followers and link clicks, or profile visits. Today, we'll focus on verified followers. Verified followers on Twitter are people that pay to use the platform. They are not bots. And why we want to focus on verified followers are more likely the real people that will use your product, that will engage with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. On the screen, you can see a side-by-side. This was Lulo around the peak of our deposits. At that time, we had about 136 million in deposits, and we had 28% of our followers at the time were verified. I would challenge anybody there managing a team or managing a big profile to go check their verified followers. Me as an individual who has been on crypto Twitter for many, many years, I have 36% of my followers are verified. Those are the real people that follow me. What we did at Lulo, and I would stress this as well, is we had no point system. We had no referral system. We didn't pay influencers. We didn't do the like, retweet, tag 3 friends. We built this organically. And that is part of those actionable metrics is when you build organically, you tend to fuel the metrics that will be the most actionable for you and your project. Instead of going on long diatribes, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this little presentation. I hope you found some actionable insights. We can all win here. I truly believe that crypto is the great equalizer of the world. It's helped me get out of debt. It helped me change my life. And that can be the case for anybody here. So with that, I'll leave it to Val and Lucas. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Maurice. Lots to talk about there in the next section. But for now, I will bring on Val and toss it over to you. Thank you, Maurice. We'll see you in a second. Val, the stage is yours. Please share your screen, and then I will share it with the world. And I try to leave you on the stage this time instead of staying myself. All right, take it away, Val. Thank you.
You can stay. I'm comfortable with talking with you, Maurice. Well, can I just say thanks a lot to Maurice, because I absolutely loved all of the points that he listed. And I think there is definitely a lot to talk about. But if you don't mind, I'll move a little bit to talking about Tribe. Well, our Web3 division, TRBE, it comes from one of the biggest Web2 creator marketing platforms in the world. And Tribe originally started about 10 years ago in Australia. And since then, we opened offices all around the world and worked with huge Web2 names like Disney, TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat, and much more. And even though our website is newer, our team is not new to this. For example, I've been working in Web3 sphere for several years, and even though I look like I'm 16 with the makeup on, I'm not, believe me. And we've brought that decade of experience into this Web3 space, and we now work with around 100,000 Web2 and Web3 KOLs. So we know how to make a good campaign that certainly lands successfully. Well, what we do at TRBE, it's pretty simple to explain, but a little bit more complex to execute because we match projects with the right KOLs, and we build custom strategies that are data-backed and rooted in psychology, because you can't do marketing without actually understanding the human behavior. And we use our own platform and integrated APIs to track performance in real time. And that's what helps us make marketing actually work. So that's a little bit about TRB. I'm now here broadcasting and talking about a very cool topic, which is called a marketer's holy trinity. It's about 3 proven strategies that help Web3 campaigns actually hit their goals. And I suggest getting into it right now, because I've got 3 strategies and 15 points. I promise I won't take the entire space. Well, so the 3 most workable campaigns strategies in influencer marketing are unified social proof, focused repetition, and of course, an ambassador partnership. They are different, but they have the same idea. They all are being used to bring a potential customer into an actual users. And I believe that the unified social proof strategy is one of the most usable campaigns in the world. This one is actually classic. And the idea is to create a synchronized wave of attention. So you have one post, you have one message, but you share it across 30, 50, 70, or even sometimes 100 creators. It really depends on your budget. Every creator tailors their message to their tone, but the core stays the same. And it works for a number of reasons, which is very important to remember when you are making a unified social proof campaign. Well, first of all, it's a social proof principle. When we're unsure, we always look to others. For example, imagine if multiple creators post the same message at the same time, our brain read that as a consensus. If they're talking about it, it must be important, right? right. And then comes the bandwagon effect. It creates the sense that something is trending and everyone's in it. Believe it or not, but it still works, even though a lot of people miss it and they think that, hey, I don't want to be on trend just because I want to be different. And projects also think that sometimes it's misleading because this is exactly what can bring you to the top. And it's also about being on the same level as others, being in that same community of people who get the trends. And since we're all social creatures, well, no one wants to be left out, and it's as basic as that. And there's also network amplification. So, for example, if a person sees a post about your project 5 to 6 to 7 times in a single day across different voices, it becomes very, very familiar. And, it's just a mere exposure effect. So it's important to understand that the more you see the post, the more familiar it gets, the more your project is familiar to those users. And we also have what I called trust borrowing. So for example, if I don't know your brand, but someone I trust talks about it, I'm more likely to give it a chance. So it's like, it's easier to understand if we were to take an example of you talking to a friend who tells you about coin A, and you're making a decision between coin A and coin B. And if your friend really tells you that, hey, you should invest in coin A, then you're more likely to choose it over coin B. So it's that's why when we hear all of the KOLs talking about one project who are saying, hey, invest here, invest in this one is trustworthy, we are more likely to believe them and actually invest in it. And finally, we have the framing effect, which is every KOL tells the story in their own voice, which helps the message just hit different segments of the audience. But it's very important to understand that your strategy might not work for several reasons. First of all, you might have not enough KOLs because you have a low budget. The KOLs you've chosen have a very low score, which you also haven't checked out before starting to work with them. They have bot followers, engagement. I think that a lot of projects do know this this problem, and a lot of them have made the same mistake over and over again. Also, you might do a copy paste. And it's important to understand that when you're talking to a KOL, you're not talking to a simple machine who's just posting. You're talking to a person who has their own blog and who is talking about important things and things that matter to that person, and they love to talk in their own style. That's why if you, for example, copy paste that same message across 100 creators, well, people will recognize that this is an ad and they will just simply skip it. That's about unified social proof strategy. The second one is more about depth instead of reach. It's called focus repetition. And this time you pick fewer KOLs, but you work with them for 2 to 3 to 4 posts instead of just one. This is a different strategy. It's a little bit more about repetition rather than brand awareness, and it's good to use it for other purposes. And now this plays on something that is called illusory truth effect. So basically, the more we hear something, the more we believe it. It's something that was studied for a century, and the findings are actually wild. I was so surprised when I first heard it, but believe it or not, 80% of all the information we hear in a few days is forgotten unless it's repeated. And that's why it's very important, and it's very good when you can see that a creator doesn't post just once about your project, but consistently talks about it and talks from a personal perspective. There's also such a thing which is cognitive fluency, and it's about familiar messages feeling much easier to process because, well, what is easy to understand is also easy to process, and it's more trustworthy. And don't forget that the strategy also lets KOLs build a narrative. Like, for example, when you start with the first post, you can tease your audience, potential customers. The next post can explain something, and then the third can reinforce or drive an action. And that's how you turn curiosity into a real conversion. And you can't forget about the very important fact that here you can also make a mistake of, first of all, choosing the wrong voice. KOLs who are talking about, for example, games in the gaming industry probably won't help you to converse as many people as, for example, a KOL who is talking about AI industry, if, for example, your project is also about AI. And plus, once again, copy-paste doesn't work. You can't do the monotone messaging. You have to tailor your post. You have to use hooks. Otherwise, people will just easily scroll and they won't pay any attention, even though the narrative was built and your KOL posted 2 to 3 posts. And last but not least, it's the ambassador partnerships. Well, we don't use it as much, but in some occasions, it can be your best winning strategy, because this is the most long-term and relationship-driven strategy. You choose just 2 to 3 KOLs and who are perfectly aligned with your brand, and you go deep. You don't just ask for posts. Once again, they're not a posting machine. They are people. You ask them to build a story about your brand, but you're building with them. You can't skip this one. You have to engage, you have to dive deep, and you have to work. You have to build a partner and not just the person who is posting about your project a few times. And it's powerful and it works because, first of all, we've got identity signaling. So if a follower sees their favorite creator consistently backing a project, they start to associate those values with the project itself. It becomes a part of their identity too. And considering that most of us, we don't know who we are or what we do or why we're here and always confused, it's really good for us as humans to have someone who can tell us that, hey, look at this, I trust this project, you can trust them as well because. And that's the identity signaling. Also, when you use ambassador partnerships, it's very good because you've got emotional contagion. So basically, you are engaging with your audience on an emotional level, and they start to trust not only their KOL, but they start to trust your project because they can see that their favorite KOL is backing you up. They are emotionally invested in it. And I think that that's the magic of authentic and repeated content when you do it right. And over time, you also build a top of mind awareness. When the person's audience, when the KOL's audience sees your brand every single week and day, they don't just have to think twice. And when it's time to make a decision, they choose your project because they already know you. They've seen you many times. They trust you. They trust their KOLs. It's basically when your potential customer stays on top of the marketing funnel. And this is exactly where we want them to be, because after that, it's very easy to turn into an active user. But once again, it will work only if it's a consistent. And if the content is forced, people will easily forget. So I think that it's very important to remember those 3 strategies, to use them. But most importantly, you have to understand your target audience, because otherwise, if you haven't done a very thorough research of your audience, you won't be able to, first of all, recognize the strategy that is going to be the most beneficial to your campaign. And second of all, you'll be targeting the wrong people, the wrong audience, and your content will be just out of place and out of context. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening. Lucas, your stage.
I'm back. Maurice is back. We'll get rid of your screen. Thank you so much for the presentation. Really instructive. I think very cool. 2 very different perspectives. One, again, like Val and I did a space 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or something, and did a real behavioral science sort of deep dive, like what works. I think this is a great continuation. And then Maurice, you brought a lot of this stuff to the table as well from a different perspective. So thank you guys so much for that. Let's start with something maybe a little bit foundational also for the rest of the conversation. TRBE obviously is a Web2 KOL company first, and then is now exploring also the Web3 space. Val, maybe let's talk about how different this space is and feels and behaves from this perspective of how users are interacting with things. Maybe just some learnings there, and then I'll also pass it to Maurice because he spoke a lot on what matters there. But maybe just a little bit on the difference between those 2 ecosystems, let's say, and sectors, and what you've learned there.
I think it's very important to understand that in Web3, we're focusing on different channels and on different visions as well. So for example, in Web2, we use more Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest. So it's all about the visuals. And as a basis, as like a rule, your brain comprehends visuals so much faster, and it takes it in much faster than the text. But considering that we're talking about Web3, in Web3, our main channel to talk about crypto, DeFi projects, GameFi, we use text. So we have to be very specific and intentional with the words that we are using, because otherwise people will see that, first of all, you don't get the space, you're not from it, like you came from Web2 sphere, you haven't you're not that deep in the sphere, and you're just a random person who decided to come in and share the work that they're doing just because it's hyped. I mean, you just have to adapt, especially in terms of your tone of voice.
Yeah, very interesting. Actually, Maurice, I have a direct follow-up there that takes a little bit from Val, because Lulo specifically, right, works with stable coins. So it's actually quite interesting, perhaps, for like a more traditional market segment that a lot of the Web3 DeFi or NFT or all of these speculative assets don't really address. Did you have like a specific learnings from like what actually worked with a Web2 audience, or was Lulu always just focused on getting as much of the degens into more stable earnings?
No, it's a great question. So yeah, like I definitely have become a bit of like a stable coin expert over the last 18 months. And you know, with Lulo, when I started with Lulo, we were Solana's one and only lending aggregator. And we really were focused on crypto natives. But with that being said, in crypto, right, there's all these like broken incentive mechanisms where you have points farming and you have, you know, airdrop farming and liquidity locusts. So what we focused on was that organic brand building. You know, there weren't any KOLs or influencers that really wanted to talk about stablecoin lending. It's not as sexy. It's definitely built and intended end goal is retail, right? So as I was making my exit from Lulo, they were setting up their extension into Web 2, right? And as Val said, Web 2 and Web 3 have historically completely different marketing styles. And I think the next frontier is actually Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube specifically, visual, right? And again, I'm gonna second what Val said. People engage with faces and images way better than they do a text on a screen. So I think like that's something that I really focused on with Lulo over, you know, the 18 months I was with them, was building a brand that was visually communicating our brand values, our intentions, you know, why use Lulo, right? And I think that's another little, you know, snippet that I wanted to touch on, but maybe like it's worth reiterating if I didn't. People don't want to necessarily learn about your product. They want to learn about how your product makes their lives better, right? What does your product do for them that they can't already do for themselves, or how will it enrich their lives? And I think a lot of projects in crypto want to just tell you why their product is good, not why you should use it. So I hope I answered your question, Lucas. I'm happy to double click on something if I
no, and this is sort of an open question because this is something I wrote down while Val was talking, which is very interesting, and you just touched on this. I think it's very important to note that brand building is actually value building and is relationship building, right? These are all intertwined, and this is why humans and human faces that you know, KOLs, for example, are such an, you know, effective vehicle still. Even though, you know, maybe people are tired or like, you know, kind of see through it at this point in the space. But of course, like, how do we choose what we buy and what we trust? It's through human relationships, right? So, you know, maybe Val, just double down on that, like how that works in your work and what you've felt is like effective, because I think one of the things you mentioned was also the framing needs to fit the audience of the KOL, right? So if you have a 50 people that you're working with, you need to understand what the audiences are of those creators, and then you need to work with that and kind of, you know, figure out what the brand narrative is, or the brand relationship with these new potential customers? Maybe a little bit of some learnings that or insights that you have on that.
Most certainly. Well, the first thing we actually do when we're building a campaign, we ask the project to provide us with the insights on their audience, because it's important to understand who their customers are. Apart from, all of the brand's identity books, all the shrift, all the visuals that they give us as well. We ask for information that will help us to actually understand who we're targeting, who we're talking about, and after that we are searching for KOLs who are, first of all, from the same sphere or from the spheres that will most certainly relate to the project that we're talking about. And second of all, we make sure that the KOL understands what they're talking about. It's easy to drop a message and say, hey, can you post this, please? I'll pay you for that, any amount that you want. But it's so much harder when you go through every single KOL and adopt a post about a project that, for example, we take the information that the project gives to us, then we adopt it into posts specific to the KOLs, and then we ask the KOLs to make them a little bit different and adapt them to their own styles. So people will understand that, hey, it's not just promo. It's actually my favorite KOL talking about the project, but also a personal insight, and maybe just giving, first of all, explaining their pain and then giving the solution. And maybe I'll listen because it also touches the pain point that I have. Let's take any example, even I don't know, for example, accessibility. I think it's very important to understand that crypto is very hard for a lot of people to understand. It's hard to understand how it works, what it's built on. That is why we need more projects who will help us to explain in easy words, maybe with visuals, maybe with texts, maybe with even, like small figures, small construction site that we give to
Memes,
babies
right?
to
The power of
build
memes. I
with
think,
memes. Yeah. So people will know like how it's working and why it's working. That's why it's important to give the pain, to explain what it is, and also to give a solution to say, hey, that's it. And for the KOLs who are talking to the people who also care, who need this information because they also rely on it.
You got me going on a few different things there. So one thing I would want to follow up with immediately was branding, right? And brand building. And at the end of the day, I think something a lot of people forget about is that branding is not just a logo. It's not just a visual. It's not just a communication strategy. It's an emotional reaction. It's a way you feel about something. That's how you build brand loyalty. That's how you build diehard users. That's how you build lifelong users, right? And I love to use the example of Nike and Apple. And I know it's like really obvious and high level, but like Nike and Apple, when I was younger, made impressions upon me. And Nike specifically, like I had friends that worked for Nike. I would wait online outside of stores in New York City as a kid to buy sneakers from Nike. I had this feeling that like when I put on Nike clothing that I could do anything that I wanted. Overcome obstacles, right? So I think that's something really important in crypto that we miss out a lot on, is like genuine brand building. And that goes into this building the audience and the quality of the audience and how you talk to your audience and where you get your audience, right? So, at least for like Lulo, just to keep that example running, again, not a sexy product, not a 25x opportunity. We weren't getting you, 800% APY on your stable coins. We preached sustainability. We preached, responsible financial practices in a space where everyone was looking for 100x, where everyone was just trying to get rich quick overnight, when the reality is that's not as realistic, right? And at the end of the day, I think it's really important for companies to also be really, really honest and upfront about that kind of stuff. And I think a lot falls short. So, the audience that we built resonated with the message we were sending, and we went to events and we went to spaces, and I got on calls with the Philippines at 3 a.m. just to talk to people about their experience with stable coins or their experience with savings or how crypto could help them. Last point before I throw the mic back away. Val was making a really great point as well at the end of her comments there, which was like, crypto's confusing. Crypto's really hard to understand. Even I, as a crypto veteran and a crypto native, like, I can get lost really quickly. And I think the future of crypto is disambiguating that blockchain tech away. And again, just telling people and showing people how it improves their lives and how it can make everything better for them. People don't understand how the internet works. People don't understand how payment processing works. But if it works for us, we use it because it improves our lives. I'll leave it at that.
Amen, though.
Good point. I just want to add, and probably it's a very simple thing, but I just want to remind the project that instead of focusing on the prices and on selling, focus on why you came into the space first place. Like, as a marketer, I do understand that the final destination is to sell something. We all are making money. We all are trying to provide for ourselves and live a good life. But also, don't forget that you came into the space for a purpose. And when you're talking to your target audience, don't just focus on pre-TG or TG or, I don't know, something selling for just this price. Because originally, the point why you are here is because you're helping people to resolve a problem. So try maybe focusing on why you're here, what's the purpose, what's the value. And in this way, you'll be able to open up your purpose here and attract more people than just by saying that, hey, we're here, we're selling. That's just one point I wanted to add.
Yeah, super interesting. I also wanted to touch on something because, like, we're talking about a stage here where a project is very aware of what it does, what its values are, etc. Like, there's also the stage where you and Maurice mentioned this with this experimentation spaghetti against the wall sort of slide, where you have to kind of figure out, okay, I mean, we start with these values, and in Web3 you pivot so much with your product and you adjust all the time that you kind of also need to find your brand voice. And Maurice, I'll start with you here, because you mentioned this spaghetti against the wall throwing, like, techniques or finding the right audience and figuring out how to talk to the audience. Like, do you have any, take from success, out a bunch of things and eventually it worked? Or do you have a specific, let's say, playbook of experimentation, like you try different visuals, compare them side by side? Like, what are some of the lessons you learned there?
Yeah, so in terms of experimentation, something I love to do is study how other companies have done it before and iterate on that. Again, Nike and Apple have been huge educators for me, right? I've studied the way they've marketed. I've studied the way that they've communicated. And I try to emulate that. I iterate it. There's a few sayings that I love, which is like, mimicry is the utmost form of flattery. Good artists copy, great artists steal. I wouldn't hesitate to lock into things that you see on the timeline or you see in marketing on Instagram or TikTok or wherever you're scrolling, and iterate on things that you like. I think that's a great way when you don't know what you're doing or you don't know where you're going to start there. The other thing I would do is kind of try to see what the market is saying, what the market is doing, how they're behaving, right? I like to stand out in a crowd, but that doesn't always work for everybody, right? But if you can see what other projects are doing and then try to stand out from the crowd while also still playing the game they're playing, like Val even mentioned in her presentation, like copy paste. You can't really copy paste a message necessarily, but there are literal copy paste metas on Instagram and Twitter where people just reiterate the same thing over and over. And I think that's like another easy way to kind of experiment, throw spaghetti on the wall. Last thing I would say here on the experimentation is using different formats, right? So right now, crypto Twitter has historically been text-based and meme-based and static images. I would encourage everyone to explore different formats, videos, GIFs, short form videos, interviews. The human face is going to generate more engagement and more reactions than a static illustration of a monkey. And I've tested it, and I'd encourage you to go test it as well.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think it goes back to why KOL marketing actually works still, right? That's the reason. People connect with humans at the end of the day, and they connect with these you know, social relationships that they build with creators even. What
I would really quick, I would just double click on something there. I am seeing KOLs and again in the Solana ecosystem, just as a reference point, I'm seeing the KOLs that are doxed, public, making videos, going to events, excelling far beyond the ones that are staying anonymous and staying hidden behind PFPs. And I think that's something that we're going to see shift in time, because KOLs in Web 2 are all public. There are very few anonymous KOLs in Web 2. And I think we need to emulate and kind of hit on that a little bit more.
And this probably, I mean, this also extends beyond that. I actually made a note of that while you were talking about the maturity of the space as well, right? Like in the beginning, nobody was doxxed, right? Like I don't know what PFP I had for the longest time, but it was not this. Probably for the better of the world. But also there's, you know, I think the maturity of this space also means that founders now, the expectation is like, are you running a serious business? Well, why don't you show us your face? Who are you? Like, we want to learn more about you. And I think that's really a great development, because again, at the end of the day, if this is supposed to, you know, expand beyond the current audience that we have, clearly we need to build trust in the technology, and you build trust in the technology by building trust in the people that build on this technology, right? So I think that's super interesting. From the experimentation, from this actually to perhaps like new founders and budgets, I just wanted to talk about that, because that's a very real thing, right? Like if you're just starting a business, you're not going to be able to throw 50K at KOL campaigns, as much as you might want to, as effective as they might be, but it's not so feasible. Like what are some hacks? And maybe I'll ask the KOL person for that first, because, you know, perhaps it's really a limiting thing. Like, don't do KOL campaigns until you have the maturity to do a certain budgets, or find different KOLs. I just want to see, like, what's your kind of thinking on the budget requirements for that, and like what are some scrappy sort of startup tips that people can start with, you know, become your own KOL perhaps, or something like that. Yeah, start with you, Val, and then I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts on that, Maurice.
Well, I think it's very important to understand that first of all, if you want to become your own KOL, you have to post with intention. Like, if a lot of people are going into content creation thinking that, hey, it's so cool, I can earn from this, but not actually having an idea of why they're doing it. And people who get to the top are the ones who are sharing their opinion and actually getting right all of the things that they're saying in the space, like getting their perspective, and other people listen to them just because they see that they have a basis for saying that. In terms of the KOL budgets, I think that it really depends on the purpose of the campaign, on your current focus. For example, if you have good budgets, well, I would recommend not actually focusing on the low number of KOLs, because depending on the strategy that you're using, still paying the KOLs in Web 3 is going to be a little bit more expensive than in Web 2, like in my experience, what I've learned. And you have to understand that every single penny that you're spending is going with intention. So you should either focus on focused repetition and choose a few KOLs that you're going to be doing this with, but you have to be very careful with the target audience that you're choosing, that you have. Or you should go with maybe working with a few ambassadors who will be brand advocates for you, and who will be literally talking every single day about the project that you're doing, just because they believe in it. Because if they believe, and if they see that this project will help this KOL's expense later on in their career, they will help you as well. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, this long-term alignment is very interesting. Maurice, like some scrappy startup tips. You have zero budget. How do you run a campaign?
Yeah, so funny enough, I've done that. I've done that a few times. I just want to share one quick story. In 2021, the team I came into crypto full-time working for paid Little Moon Lambo, if anyone's familiar, very famous KOL. He was paid 1 ETH for 1 tweet. It drove 0 results. We have no idea what it did. And it's a perfect example of not only how KOLs and influencers can take advantage of new projects, but also the lack of understanding on what good marketing spend actually is for new projects. With that little story being said, budgets are incredibly important. I would absolutely 100% encourage every founder out there to allocate budget towards marketing. I know product, I know development, I know, UI, UX, all of those things are beyond important. But at the end of the day, if your product isn't getting out in front of other people's eyes, and if they're not seeing it, it's useless. It's pointless, right? So I would get creative with budgets. I would absolutely allocate money towards producing custom content, custom images, visuals. You can leverage AI right now, but don't push AI slop. I would definitely edit, whether you need to get someone on your team that can do that editing, invest in those people. I would definitely second what Val was saying about ambassadors. I think it's even a really interesting approach is leveraging like reply guy strategies. So you could target KOLs, try to be really early in the replies of their tweets, get their attention, try to get them to tweet about you before they even ask you or you even approach them to make content on your behalf. And the last thing I'd say here, because it's so related to budgets and marketing spend for startups, treat your marketing like a product. And when you treat it like a product, you give it the care and the attention and the budget needed to make sure it succeeds. At the end of the day, I think a lot of projects with phenomenal products fail because they don't invest in marketing. And it's not just investing in KOLs, and it's not just investing in posting or reply guys or hosting streams. It's an amalgamation of all these efforts, right? And as we were saying earlier, and we've kind of iterated this over and over, humanization, right? Make what you're doing human, and people will engage with it more. And the end result will be you probably don't need as big of a marketing budget, right? So last thing I'm going to say here is, while I support throwing spaghetti at the wall, I don't support throwing money at the wall, right? And I think there's a very big difference between being cheap and being frugal. And being frugal and being intentional with your spend. And Val has touched on this. Lucas has touched on this. I've touched on this. Be intentional. And I'd say just try to be intentional with your life in general, right? Like where you go, what you do, how you behave. But if you do that with your marketing and you do that with your budgeting, it will come through with the product. And I think like I've seen that happen over and over and again. I'm rambling now, so I'm going to stop.
I wanted to, because you touched on it, and we got this question in the chat a bit ago, which I think is very interesting, right? Like marketing has shifted completely, or the opportunities that you have as a one-person team are incredible now, just thanks to the tools that are available. This is image generation, video generation, and of course, just like being able to basically produce blog posts and anything else you want at scale through these models. So like want to ask you, or throw it back to you, Maurice, because you just touched on it as well.
Problem.
Like what are some of the strategies that you've been leveraging or exploring, perhaps using AI specifically to kind of ramp up the efforts you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna set the foundation here and say I think every single person working in crypto should be testing and playing with AI, whether it's ChatGPT to help you build copy, whether it's Notion AI or Typefully AI to help you iterate and test out different copy, ChatGPT, Kriya, Midjourney to make images. I would probably change the question up a little bit, and it's less about LLMs and more about leveraging AI in general. I think it's like something that you want to try and that's what I wanted to say. So instead of using AI, collaborate with AI. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but when you start to treat the AI like a collaborator, like someone you're working with, you're going to get much better results. And I found that I can train my ChatGPT on a certain topic with certain data and train it on my voice and my tone and my style and get results that save me so much time in that marketing production process, right? I have been the full marketing vertical before. And if I didn't leverage AI over the last 6 months to do that, I probably wouldn't have produced results, right? So get scrappy, test stuff, play around, and use trial periods, right? Like take those trial opportunities with different products. But if anybody does want to reach out to me on some tips and tricks on this, feel free. I won't gatekeep my experience.
Amazing. I also want to move on to something else. We're coming up on the hour, so this and then maybe one more question to touch on, and I'll start with Val for this one because it's very interesting. We talked about gaining attention, using different tools to get attention, all of this stuff, and we also talked about how we don't focus on selling necessarily with what we're communicating, but at the end of the day, how do we measure good marketing? Well, we need some kind of conversion. We need to get that reach attention, and we need to convert it into measurable results. And since you're the queen of measurable results, Val, I'll start with you. What are the ways that we should leverage the audience and the attention that we have to then actually also drive sales?
I think that honestly, it's very important to, first of all, remember why you're doing it. I'm so sorry. I keep on coming back to the fact that you have to be intentional with it. But second of all, if you understand how you have to run your campaigns and you understand also through what strategy you're using to achieve certain results, and also you have to be very specific with the results. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to measure, because marketing is not just about being creative. It's not about, hey, I'll do a beautiful visual and I'll sell. No. Marketing is about data plus psychology. And that's why when you are building a campaign, you have to, first of all, build your goals, then communicate those goals to your marketer, who will also help you understand the different metrics and the levels of those metrics that you want to achieve. And after that, you are moving onwards to analyzing that data. And because we are working with APIs in different social media channels, it's easier for us because we can understand, we can see how many people are coming to the website, for example, the link of which we mentioned in the post, in one of the blog posts, or how many people have moved on to watching different Twitter accounts. We literally source all of that data from our platform. We put it in the report and we give it to our clients by the end of the campaigns, because it's important that we, first of all, analyze what went well and what gone wrong. And second of all, we learn from it and then we use it once again. So we can use different platforms. We can use TRBE platform, we can use protocols, we can use cookie 3, because they all provide different measures. But at the end of the day, once again, you have to, first of all, see if your goals have been achieved. And second of all, what is the final destination of your audience? Have you achieved on bringing that audience to you? Have you seen the results?
Yeah,
So
very interesting.
that's my
Maurice,
take.
from attention to conversion.
Yeah, so what I would say here is focus on adding value. Adding value can look a bunch of different ways. There's comedy, education, information, inspiration. I would avoid controversy, although controversy does garner attention. But what I always try to do is add value, and then I measure it based on what the goal is for the campaign or what the goal is for the marketing. At Lulo, the key KPI, the OKR, was deposits, right? How I could measure whether the content was driving deposits was link clicks, profile visits, verified followers. I didn't focus on retweets. I didn't focus on impressions. You could boost those. You could foil those. It's ways. There's ways to make them vanity, like look good. But at the end of the day, if you are driving link clicks and profile visits on Twitter, you're probably also converting, right? But if you're only getting likes and you're only getting replies, that doesn't necessarily convert, right? So that's sort of where I live on Twitter. It's link clicks, profile visits, and verified followers.
Yeah, I want to just ask Val real quick on this. Do you have like one specific 1 or 2 metrics that you think or that you found convert? Like this is the 1 or 2 metrics that you should be focusing on or driving? I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes. I was saying that no, because you have to focus on the full picture of your campaign. You cannot focus, for example, on total views or total followings or total sales, because, for example, even if you focus on how good your pre-sale was, then it might be the instance that people who pre-sales wouldn't continue going with you in the long run, and you will lose the audience that you gained. So that is why I would say that you can't focus just on 1 or 2 metrics. You have to focus on the full picture, and only in this way you will understand like all of the little specific things that drive the audience to you and how you can improve or different the strategy
Yeah, I think
that you're
once
using.
again we're going back to like really understanding your audience. This is such a big like sine qua non. Like you need to do that before you kind of do anything else. And for that, you need to figure out who you are, who the brand is, what you want to communicate, your raison d'être, your reason of being in this space. And you mentioned this like a few times, Val, to this point, which I think is very valuable to remind everybody. Like first, we need to understand why we're here, and then we can tell other people what we're here, and then maybe they want to buy the cool product that we have. Last thing, up on the hour now. Thank you so much, first of all, for being here. The future of Web3 marketing. We talked about distribution a little bit. Maurice did a masterclass on X attention, Twitter attention. Is that the future? Do you see Web3 kind of breaching beyond the Twitter walls? Obviously, I think, Val, you must have great data on this with different KOLs on different platforms. So maybe we'll start with you and then get the thoughts on like where this space is actually headed.
Sure. I would say that for now, Twitter is the best channel that we can use, but we should definitely focus on YouTube more. And there's also a reason behind it, because we've been fed this short content for a few years now, and I think that people are tired, and a lot of people are going back to YouTube. And especially if we're talking about something a little bit that has if we're talking about something that is a little bit harder to understand, like crypto, for example, a lot of people do use YouTube for different purposes, but mostly educational. That's why, especially if there are creators who are talking about new projects, why you should use them and show the visuals, here we've got the benefit of both educational content and beautiful visuals that your brain comprehends and then tells you to act on it, because it sees and it understands. So it basically touches upon different ways that we as humans understand, the emotional and the rational. So I think that YouTube is going to be the next big thing that we're going to go into.
Super interesting. Maurice, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to second that. Right now, I am, and I have been for quite some time, just trying to understand the shift that is coming, which is going to be much more crypto and Web3 content and attention on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. The beautiful thing about Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube is they all have that short form video content format. And you can, in theory, recycle across those platforms. I do think each platform should have tailored content that is directed towards a specific audience. For instance, an Instagram audience might be more interested in like lifestyle branding, and the YouTube audience might be more interested in the educational content. I don't think crypto Twitter is going anywhere. I think it's only going to become bigger for crypto. But I think if we want to address the globe, and the total addressable market of crypto is the globe, there are over 2 billion people on Instagram, whereas Twitter only has about 500 million, and it's shrinking, right? So I think it's tantamount that teams figure out distribution across other channels. And I think something that both Val and I hit on earlier was this like ambassador concept, right? If you could build out a really strong ambassador group, especially on Twitter and crypto Twitter, those people, and as I do, right? Most of us have multiple social media accounts. If you're able to leverage an ambassador group to help you get better distribution on those new channels, that's a huge unlock. But that's impossible to do unless you build brand and you are intentional and you do all the other things that Val and I and Lucas were talking about, just to be able to get to that point. So I've been talking to a few teams about how they're going to extend into Instagram, how they're going to leverage TikTok. And I think YouTube, for me personally, as like a YouTube nerd that has been on YouTube forever, that I'm extra excited for. And YouTube now has two basic formats, right? Like long form videos and shorts are getting a ton of attention. So yet again, I'm rambling. I'm going to pause there. And yeah.
No, I don't think that was much of a ramble, but I think also we've had a lot of information, I hope, packed into this hour, and there's so much more to talk about. Maybe we'll have marketing part 2 even. I think
Cool.
there's really a lot more to dig into, but for now, wanted to keep this very short, very focused. I think there's a lot of actionable insights. We'll also, do some distribution for this, shorts and a blog post and things like this. Is also, I think, a big unlock that people should always think about. Like, there's so much unused content. Like, you can put this hour-long show into, hopefully 10-20 useful clips, distribute them, have little sound bites, even just or a blog post and things like that. If you're producing content, especially long-form content, reuse it, cut it into clips. Give it a try on different platforms with different audiences. And so we'll try to practice what we preach here and bring this into some different audiences. Guys, thank you so much for being here. It was really very instructive and fun talking to you. I hope it's not too late there, Val. Thank you so much for staying up.
I'm okay. It's okay. Thank you so much for hosting. And Maurice, thank you so much for all of your points. I loved it. And also, can I just say a huge thank you to everyone who commented? I absolutely loved the comments, the questions, and also the point about because he spoke in French.
Yeah. Somebody
Sorry.
in the chat said this is a smart chat, and the other comment
Yeah.
was like, just because he said something in French. Yes, that is true. I think I also used Latin, so I'll try to go easier on the jargon, because that's what I learned from Maurice's presentation. But in general, hope that everybody was able to learn something. Again, Val, Maurice, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for the work that you do out there and sharing the knowledge. So important. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for chatting with us. Thank you for being active in the chat. We'll see you for another format, probably in 2 or 3 weeks. Same time, different topic, new guests, same great insights. So thank you.